This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jarboh, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. This week's episode is a really special one. It's in honor of Liam Mikael Kowal, who lost his life to a drunk driver September 4th, 2016. Today I have Liam's father, Marcus Kowal, here. We're going to share more about his fight, about mindset, about some of the amazing journeys he has went on to fight in the honor of his son. Marcus is a martial artist, an activist, a true fighter, podcast host, author, and most importantly, just one of the strongest men I ever met in my life. I promise you that this episode is going to be meaningful, so kick back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to sit down and talk to you. And I don't know if you know this, but you're one of my biggest role models. You're such an incredible human being and has played such an amazing part in my life. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. It means a lot. You know, you work hard and you hope that it will help someone. And I know how much you help other people. So thank you very much. That's great.
Yeah, it truly does. And I just want to go, obviously you've been here a couple of times. The last time we did a podcast was in your gym. We celebrated the 100th episode and did a fundraiser for Liam. So can we just talk a little bit, what has happened since the last time we spoke? You're fighting for Liam's law. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about that and what's happened since last time we spoke?
A lot have happened, and I always try to, I got to start writing it down because I don't, first and foremost, and I should. But the biggest thing is having the bill introduced, which is how you start the beginnings of changing a law. So if you want to, which in our case, we're trying to lower the blood alcohol content from 0.08 to 0.05. The introduction of the bill is either introduced on the Senate side. Here's a quick crash course on politics.
Yeah.
Either on the Senate side or the Assembly member side. This bill was introduced on the Assembly member side, but it was sponsored by a senator as well to lower the BAC from 0.08 to 0.05 in California. And it was introduced as Liam's law. And it was introduced by Assembly member Autumn Burke, but it was also co-sponsored by Assembly member Flora, who's Republican, Burke is Democrat, and Senator Hill as well, which shows that this is a bipartisan issue. It's not about whether you're Democrat or if you're a Republican, if you're a liberal, or if you're a conservative. Drunk driving doesn't segregate between anything. It doesn't care what color of your skin. It doesn't care what religion you practice. It kills innocent people on the national level. Someone is killed every 49th minute or every 43rd minute. And in California alone, 3 people killed every single day. So we know how important this fight is in order to save lives. It's been proven because it's been done in more than 100 countries. But we also know that we have a lot of opposition ahead of us. And we know who they are, the American Beverage Institute, and it's insane that they're allowed to do what basically they have more blood on their hands than any American blood, than any terrorist organization that we are worried about, whether it be ISIS or Al Qaeda. Stopping us from lowering the BAC, which would save some 10 to 11% of 10,000 lives taken a year, so over 1,000 lives a year. And but we also realized that we want this on the national level. We want it to be on the federal level. So because if we only work in one place, they have a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of people. So it's almost like guerrilla warfare. So we're starting a lot of little fires in different places. So far, the bill has been introduced in Oregon, Michigan, and I was in New York in May to introduce it in New York as well. So that's by far the biggest milestone, not just this year or since we spoke last, but since we began this fight.
It's incredible. And like how close, for a person who doesn't know much about politics, how close are we to actually make this happen?
We're basically as far as we were when we started, in a sense. But the way it works is either introduced on the Assembly side or the Senate side. If it gets introduced on the Assembly side, it has to go through the House of Assembly. Then it gets through the House of Senate. Then the governor has to sign off on it. Yeah. So, but before it even gets into the House of Assembly, it goes through what's called a committee. And depending on what type of a bill it is, it will go through a different type of a committee. This goes under what's called the Public Safety Committee. The Public Safety Committee has a chair named Reggie Jones Sawyer, who so far has tabled the bill, meaning a bill can be viewed or voted on over 2 years. So it didn't get introduced this year, which means it has to be introduced in 2020. And if it doesn't, it gets killed. Killing a bill, that's what it's called. It doesn't make it out of the committee. But here's the problem, in my opinion, and this is what most Americans don't. I certainly didn't know it, and I don't think most Americans know either. The Public Safety Committee should vote on this bill. But a new law allows the chair, John Sawyer, to potentially not even have the bill heard. So he can say, I'm going to table this bill and I'm not going to let the chair vote on it. Or the committee vote on it. I don't know how that can be considered democracy. That one man can make that decision. And I really do hope that Reggie Jones Sawyer makes the right decision and allows the committee to vote on it. And the committee members to vote it through so it goes through the House of Assembly. But when we went to Sacramento to go to Capitol Hill, every single committee member met with us, except from the chair, John Sawyer. And it makes me concerned, but at the same time, even if it doesn't pass through, I should say it's a huge win, because even if it doesn't pass through, we've started a debate. And through debates, you get education. Because the biggest problem is that people don't understand what 0.08 is. People don't understand what 0.05 is, or the difference between the two. It's just a number to a lot of people. Yeah. So that's where we are working. This year alone, I've been now speaking to over 7,000 high school students.
Wow. I mean, what you guys are doing is incredible. And I know you, and I know that there's going to be a change in this country and also all over the world. And when people are looking back at conversations like we are having today, they will see this journey that has been taken. So just want to talk a little bit. How do you feel when the rules and regulations are like this? Because it's kind of an unfair game, right? Life, in many instances, life is not fair, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. So how do you deal with that, and how can other people that are feeling like they're being mistreated and life is unfair, what can they do to kind of keep pushing forward?
That's a really good question, and it does get frustrating at times, especially when science backs this, right? We know what each 0.01 BAC does. We know it. It's not something it's not my opinion. Yeah. The best part, our opposition wrote in the newspaper in an article, I don't even know how they're given space in newspapers, but saying, a law should not be changed based on emotions. And they're 100% right. That's the one thing that we agree on, that it shouldn't be based just on emotions. But this is not. In fact, there's very few bills that can be backed by so much science and so much statistics. More than 100 countries have done it. Every single one of those 100 countries show that lowering the BAC is going to lower the amount of deaths. It's not just an opinion. It's not just a hopeful thought. Yeah. It's a fact. So, and it's such especially to a European, it's such a clear-cut, simple decision to make. So, of course, it gets frustrating. It gets even more frustrating when when people, civilians, write to us, to me, Michelle, one of the best examples was a man saying, I don't know if you can swear on here, but on his comment, Michelle's post was, "Fuck off! You shouldn't be allowed. You should be allowed to have at least a beer." It wasn't Michelle's post, but it was on Liam's live, and Michelle wrote back, and I don't know if he knows that Michelle is Liam's mum, but still wrote back saying, "Well, that's the risks that you take. That's God's plan." And that to me is just like how selfish or how stupid or how combination of the two, none of them that are good answers, can you be. But we also have to remember, me and Michelle, we chose to be public with what happened. We could have not gone public. And anytime you change anything, people are going to be upset. And with the internet, you get the best of the world, but you also get the worst of the world, right? Where people feel like they can write what they want and reflect their bitterness or anger. So you always have to go back and remember, why did that person write that? Was it to hurt you? Do they know you? This is the fight that we chose to take. I can be impatient at times, and that's very, very hard when it comes to politics. But just learning that this is going to take time. This is not going to happen overnight. And it's almost like a fight where in a fight when you come out and you had this game plan and all of a sudden you get hit and you get rocked and now things are going not at all the way you had planned them or the way you had worked your strategies and you were going to do this and you're going to do that. And then, and you see it sometimes in even high level professional fighters where you can just see it in their eyes like, this is not what I expected. This is not the plan. What is going on? And then you see champions where they go, all right, we're still here. We're going to figure out what we need to do to change that, right? And even though this isn't physically as painful, in many ways it's more painful at times emotionally, but you just have to go, right, this is part of the fight. This is what it's going to take. And we're just going to keep going forward. Like, because there's nothing that's going to stop me. You know, there's nothing that's going to go, oh, well, that's that then. Even if it gets voted down next year. Yeah. I don't even care, to be honest. If it goes through, great. Then we're on to the next state. But if it doesn't, then okay, then we'll continue. Because I know we're going to win, because I know we're fighting for the right thing. How, especially in today's society, can you not believe in being able to get the truth out there when we have social media? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that would have been difficult. Yeah. But now we have a way. But the opposition is also really good. They also realize that, okay, we can't stop them from getting the information out, but what we can do is we can skew it. Yeah. We can change the statistics to a certain area. Or, you know, a lot of times what people think is, what they are very good at saying is that we are against alcohol. We're saying you shouldn't drink alcohol. And if you are at 0.05, that's a sip of beer. That's not true at all. 0.05, that's for an average male, it's at least a couple of beers. In my opinion, you shouldn't have a single drink if you should drive a car. But that's not true. In fact, you can have a couple of glasses of wine, eat dinner, and then drive home and you're below 0.05. And drink as much as you want if you don't want to get, if you're not going to drive. Yeah. So that's not the problem. So it's frustrating at times, and especially when it comes to other civilians, to make them realize that look why we're doing this. Yeah. Look at who stands behind the opposition. It's people representing the alcohol industry. Yeah. And who are we? We are people. For us, I'm not even doing it for us. For us, it's too late. We lost Liam. Yeah. I'm doing it, of course, for Nico and Luna, and so, you know, their future kids. But we're doing this for you. We're doing this for everyone else so that you don't have to go through it. Yeah. And if we have opposition, it doesn't matter what you do in life, there's always going to be someone who's against you. And you just have to accept it. And unfortunately, I can tell, especially here in America, there's almost like an apathy where people are just like, well, that's government. You almost feel like you can't change something. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, because in a democratic country, that's the beauty of being lucky enough to be born into a democratic country, that you can raise your voice, you can state your opinion, and you can be part of making a change for the better. But because of lobbyism and the documentary that's coming out, Letters to Liam, it shows us what we've learned. It's been 3 years, just over 3 years since we lost Liam. And as naive as we were, thinking we're going to make this change within a year on the federal level because it makes so much sense, to going, wait, this opposition and who are these people and how ugly their fight is. And this is just a small portion of it. What we're fighting for when it comes to drunk driving, this happens and this isn't a secret, when it comes to pharma, big pharma, oil, when it comes to the healthcare system overall, when it comes to lobbyism and capitalism. I'm all for capitalism. That's why we live here. But when it penetrates the legal system, the medical system, the wealth and health of the people living in the country, then there's a problem, and that's what needs to change.
Yeah. How do you deal with you're fighting for this? You're running your businesses. You have Nico and Luna now as well, and you're dealing with grief of your son. It's been 3 years now. Like, how do you get the energy to go out and do this every day? Because we meet people every day who basically don't go through any of this, but still complaining that I can't do it, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy. Like, how do you deal with all this?
That's a good question. I don't know. I was with one of our coaches, who's a several-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He asked yesterday, he said, how do you have so much energy? And I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. My mom said, she goes, when you were little, there wasn't all these acronyms, ADHD and such. But she said, I'm sure you would have been on the spectrum if you were born today. But at the same time, I actually don't think I am, because I can sit down, I can focus, I can read a book. I have no problems doing that. I honestly, one of the things, and this is way before Liam, but obviously intensified because of Liam, is I really enjoy life. I really, really do. And I just want to be part of things. Like I love the energy of humans. I love to be part of things and to be able to be part of making a difference, of changing something. Now, to do it in my son's honor it means everything. But even if not, in my opinion, as a martial artist, that's what martial arts is truly about, is bettering yourself. Like if you look at fighting is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to martial arts. The rest of what's below what martial arts, and I don't have to tell you, you know all about it, but how it improves you as a human being, your relationships, your mental fortitude, all of it is at least part of it because of martial arts. So that's the duty of a true martial artist, in my opinion, to be the best towards yourself and towards your community as well. And I don't want to miss out. I want to make sure. I haven't told anyone this yet, but I was sitting and I was doing some soul searching, I guess. Not because I feel like I need to change anything, but just kind of curious to what you were just asking. What is it that drives me? What is it that makes me tick and keep going? And the famous why question, keep asking yourself why, but why? And I got to the base that my biggest fear is to one day look back at my life and go, you could have done a lot more. You didn't do enough. Or to be viewed by other people as someone that was lazy, that didn't do enough. And maybe it's crazy because I know deep within that I'm not lazy, but I have the days where I'm like, I didn't do enough today. I feel like I was lazy today. But that's what drives me. And then I realized I mentor people. I hate using the term life coaching, but I call it personal coaching because I'm a coach of someone.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing one of the biggest fears that people often have is the fear of failure, the fear of ridicule, of looking like embarrassment and shame. Well, you got to find that deep driving force or what ticks you, right? Yeah. So it can either be your fuel or it can be your crutch. Yeah. Where you're like, I can't do that because my biggest fear is to be viewed as a failure. Yeah. Well, I don't care if I get viewed as a failure. As long as I get viewed as someone that worked hard, like of course you want to succeed, but at least someone can say, well, he didn't make it, but he fucking tried.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do, right? Because you can look to someone who has had success and you go, all right, did well, congratulations, but either you, say for example, you were given the money or you got lucky, right? And it's the same thing when you look at a fight. If you see someone that wins by knockout and wins the title in the first round, in the first minute, you can go, oh wow, really amazing, or was it a lucky punch? What if it would have been, or if you see a 5-round war when you get tested, your grit, your heart, and you go, that's the champion. Yeah. One is of course much better, much easier, but in my opinion, to even if you lose that fight, you're a champion in my eyes because you gave it your all. And you can't not respect the person that gave 110%.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. The hardest part that I've been working on that now, but I remember when I was younger and competing in karate, some of my first international tournaments, I got owned completely, which means that I felt ridiculed in a way, and I felt like I was worth nothing.
I remember reading that in your book, yeah.
So the question, what I did, I kept going because I had this goal of continuing, but I saw so many people that stopped at that moment. And I think a lot of people, they do that. They have a dream and they say, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to try. And they tried and they fail miserably, but they don't continue. So can we just talk about what happens in the mind in that moment, if you have had any experience, and what made you push through to actually try again?
That's interesting. I've always been stubborn. Yeah. I've always been stubborn since I was a little kid. And there's pros and cons with everything, right? It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. Because when I was younger, I was hard-headed. I was bonehead at times where it was very difficult to tell me. Ask my parents, especially my dad. He would tell you, I was difficult to tell, and I can only really learn from my own mistakes. But that's who I am as a human being. And looking back at many things, I could have just gone, yep, that's my dad told me, or someone else, that's what this book told me, or that mentor told me, but I had to learn from my own mistakes. And then same thing there, you can go, oh, I failed, I should have been smarter than that. Of course, if you keep repeating the same mistake, that's a different story. But I think a lot of times you get to a breaking point. Everyone will get to that breaking point. The difference between someone that succeeds and someone that doesn't is someone that says, I'm not going to stop. Someone asked me in an interview, actually, when I did the 24 hours jiu-jitsu and set the world record in doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which was just beaten this year, actually, but by a guy, a special forces guy from England.
How many hours did he do?
He did 24 hours too. But he did more rounds during those 24 hours. I only did 105 and he did more. But I might come back and beat that. The main difference was I did it with Guinness Book of Records, and I'm not a big fan of Guinness Book of Records because they didn't recognize my first one, even though we did everything the way we were supposed to. But I might go back and break that at some point. But in the end of the day, whether I have it or if he has the record, he did it for a non-profit as well. He did for a great cause. Hats off to him, what an amazing man. So, but someone asked me in an interview saying, how do you prepare for that? And I said, you don't prepare for it. You decide. You say you're going to do it. And it's something that you got to work backwards. You got to say, okay, what am I supposed to do? This is my goal. This is what I'm going to do. Yeah. Everything that leads up to it is not going to go as I plan it. I'm going to feel, I can't physically or mentally truly prepare myself for it because I haven't done it yet. So I can't know exactly how it's going to feel. What pains am I going to feel? What am I going to struggle with during these 24 hours, for example, or the run that I did just recently. You can't know until you've done it. But each one of those wins gets stuck and is stored in your mind. So next time you try something else, you can go back and go, I've done something more difficult, or I've been in this situation before. I had 4 guys fight last night. Before one of the guys fought, who's a young kid, is really talented. And I got to say, I give him a lot of respect for this. He came up to me beforehand and said, Marcus, I'm really nervous. I'm really, really nervous. And I said, we all are before a fight. Anyone that tells you differently is a liar. We all are nervous. We have these voices in our heads saying, what are you doing? Are you insane? Stop this. That's your defense mechanism. That's part of what we do. This is how you build your mental fortitude. When your head, your mind is telling you, don't do it, and your heart and your soul is saying, we're going to do it anyways. That's how you build it. But that doesn't happen overnight. You got to build it up. Just like you train your bicep, is something tangible. You do it for long enough, you can look in the mirror and you see your bicep get bigger. How do you see your mental fortitude? You can't. But there is only one way of building it. And it's going, and sometimes you fail. And if you stop, you don't build it. But if you continue, and if you fail again and again and again, maybe you never succeed in that specific area. Each time you get back up and try again, you build your mental fortitude.
I mean, it's so true. And I was just having this conversation the other day with Camila, who's producing this show. And sometimes we see all those people that are number one, number two, number three in a sport or in a given field, but we forget a lot of times the people that are around for years doing it with their whole heart, but they never reach maybe the number one in a competition. But they improve a lot, but also they don't get recognized by other people. Like, what do you want to say to those people? Because we always forget about them. We always remember the people that are winners that we see on podcasts, interviews. But what about all those other people that are still good human beings?
That's interesting. You know, I personally, and I think maybe that's why I can do, I've always been a little bit where I would do things, and then, like, I'm from a private family. They are not like me. And to them it would look like, why would you do that when people can see you or watch you or judge you? And the truth is, I don't care. That's the thing. So, and I think that's really, really important. Like, we live our lives. And a good point yesterday, actually, we were in the changing rooms, and I do these monthly challenges, right? Yeah. So I'm in one corner doing this month we're doing cartwheels. I'm doing 100 cartwheels a day, which is, every month I'm cursing myself because 100 cartwheels is actually a lot. And then Dima, that you know as well, who is, you know, leading and coaches the fight team at Systems, and he's doing his own challenge. So he's doing push-ups and squats in one area, and this other guy comes in who's a coach, and he's like, what are you guys doing? and we're like, well, we're doing our own thing. It's like, you're that guy, because Dima was really hot, so he's taking his shirt off and he's working out, and he goes, you're being that guy right now, you know, the one that everyone is watching. And Dima made a good comment. It's a saying that's really true. It's saying, people's eyes have never gotten me far in life. And that's very, very true. Like, you can go, oh, I shouldn't do my squats and my sit-ups right now because there's people watching me. Who cares? Let them watch. Let them think that you're an idiot. Let them think that you're crazy. Let them think that you're doing it to show off. That you're that person. But if you're doing it for yourself, if you're doing it for them, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. But if you're doing it for yourself and there happens to be people around, who cares? Who gives a fuck? Let them judge. Let them sit at home in the sofas eating chips and judge you. And it's like same thing with fighting. When I've been asked this many, many times, aren't you scared? What if you get knocked out? Like, isn't it embarrassing to get knocked out in front of like a lot of people and they see you? No. I went in there. I trained as hard as I could. I did my very best. And I happened to get knocked out. It was me and one more person inside of that cage or that ring. And all the thousands or millions of people that are watching, their comments, their opinion, them trying to ridicule you, it doesn't mean anything. Look at Donald Cerrone, for example, Cowboy Cerrone, who's a warrior. He's got more fight bonuses. He's made more money because of it than a lot of other UFC fighters. Never held the title. Been so close. So close. Kenny Florian, who's a good friend of mine, who fought for 3 titles. Sean Shark, BJ Penn, and Jose Aldo. Didn't win on any of them. Is he a loser? No, he's not a loser. There was one other person, one more man that was better than him. But he's still the second best in the world. Like, we gotta forget being the first always. Like, you're second best out of how many billions of people do we have on the earth right now? So, you know, I think it's changing the angle of the view of the whole thing, where you're right, there's a lot of people that will never become the champion, right, in whatever sport. But does it matter? That person, you shouldn't be upset with that person. That person is amazing, but you should admire that person, especially if it's in your own sport and you know, I know how hard I worked. Imagine how hard that person has worked. And so it's important to remember that in the end of the day, people's admiration or, you know, the way they view you matters a lot less than the way you view yourself. You can be your own champion, you know, and that's truly in the end of the day, you can be the best in the world and not be happy. Then it doesn't matter anyways, right?
Which is probably pretty true, because this is episode 145, and
oh wow,
we've come a long
crazy.
way. But I study success, and when I see like most people, why they're doing all this crazy shit is because they want to feel significant in the world. They want to feel loved. And if we look at a lot of like the people that have gone the furthest, there's some need for them to be significant.
Yes.
And that's why we see successful people that aren't happy.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's kind of hard. Like where do you draw that line? And most of the time, the happiest people, they create a good life, but they're not willing to be at the gym at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night because they have a family, right?
Yeah.
So like, where do we draw that line? What is really like, what is success?
That's you hit the nail on the head right there. That's exactly what's important. And you wrote a book about it, balance. You're 100% right. When you get the most driven people, with exceptions, of course, but there's a lot of them that are driven for the wrong or by the wrong reason. They are driven by this need to be accepted, to be loved. And as you know, especially when it comes to fans, fan love is very short-lived. Fans are the most disloyal people out there. And I say that jokingly because, of course, you know, if you love a sport, and you still have your core root of fans that will always be there for you. But I can tell you when you're on your way, on the up and up, and people are watching you, and all of a sudden you got all these people, and then when you don't, and I can see with my own career, I'm done fighting, right? And for a lot of fighters, I see this, it's hard to leave the identity of a fighter. Why? Because that's all they can identify with. And that's where they felt that they were important, that they were loved, that people wanted them. And all of a sudden you don't have that. And if you don't have anything else, that's why you get a lot of athletes, not just fighters, but athletes that turn to drugs and alcohol and depression. There's a famous saying, I can't remember who said it, but it was a guy, a wrestler who won the Olympic gold. And he said, the worst day of my life was the day after the Olympic gold, winning the Olympic gold. Because that was his live stream. Now what, right? So it's really important to find that balance and to know who you are. Because then, and like I say, even for me, it's difficult to walk away from fighting. And it's not because I do partially, of course, identify myself as a fighter, but you can still be a fighter even though you don't fight for money inside of a cage. But for me, it's hard because I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I need that tingling feeling of like, oh, here we go, you know, here's what we got something coming up. But you can find that in other ways. That's what I need personally. And that's really why it's so important to self-reflect at times and say, what is it that drives me? What is it that gets me going? What makes me upset? What makes me irritated? What makes me happy? Because once you've realized that and you know yourself, well, then you can go after that, what it is that you actually need. So if you look at someone like Floyd Mayweather, for example, is a great example, who's defensively, you know, one of the best boxers ever. I can't say, in my opinion, that he's the best ever, because I think there's fighters that are better than him. But you got to give credit where credit's due. He's absolutely amazing inside of the ring. Outside of the ring, I don't like him as a person. I don't think he's a good role model. And I shouldn't say I don't like him as a person because I don't know him personally, but he's done things that I think are wrong. And I don't think he's a good role model for young kids. And I think that's because he didn't have that as a kid.
Yeah.
And it's still something that is lacking in his life. Yeah. Has he been successful? Of course, he's been paid more than any other athlete ever. Yeah. He's made a ton of money. But is he truly happy? Again, I don't know him personally, but I don't think so. And if he was here, I can see him pulling out a wad of money and saying, look, this makes me happy. Yeah. That's what you think makes you happy. And that's why you will never truly be happy, because you think that's happiness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, you're 100% right. You gotta find that balance. And I'm glad that we have those people, because without those, we wouldn't have people that push boundaries, that experience and develop new things, whether it be in sports or if it be in science. You know, you need those people.
Yeah, I want to talk about your latest adventure in honor of Liam, where you guys ran rim to rim to rim in Grand Canyon, 80K, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible. I actually wanted to join you, but I've never run that far. So I said, this is not my journey this time. What I'm going to do November 3rd, I'm going to run my first half marathon in honor of Liam.
Thank you. That means a lot.
So yeah, it means a lot to me too, because I love Liam and I love you guys. And this is every time I run now when I'm training, because it takes some training, and I always try to 100%. Think like, if I'm tired now, it's not important, because we're doing this for a bigger cause. Can you just share like kind of your experience in a short version? I know it was a long run, 17 hours or something, a lot of training heading up to this. Let's just start. How did you fucking get that idea? You know, because it's a crazy thing to do.
It is.
People die out there.
Yes, actually, on average, 12 people die every single year in the Grand Canyon. In 2018, 17 people died. Since they started recording it, over 750 lives have been taken by the Grand Canyon, and it's usually because of dehydration, heat stroke, or falling. Yeah. And the idea came up, actually, my brother, I got my brother to thank for that. My brother, who's done several Ironmans, and Ironmans is when you swim 2.3 miles. And then you bike 2 miles. Yeah. And then you bike 100 miles, and then you run a marathon. Yeah. So usually it's somewhere between 10 to 15 hours, and he almost qualified for Kona. It was 12 minutes off, which is like the race for people that do Ironmans in Hawaii. And he called me and he said, hey, do you want to be part of a crazy thing? Do you want to go and run the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim? It's 50 miles. I'm like, no, why would I do that? And then he told me the days, like, look, we're looking at the 7th of September, and you know, we lost Liam on the 4th of September, and I thought, well, I want to do something to honor him. I want to continue. And then I started looking into me, sending me some information on it. I looked it up, and this was this spring. So I only had 3.5, maybe 3.5. I think it was 4 months when I started, but I didn't have a training program at the time. So 3.5 months of actually training for it. A lot of people that start training for a marathon usually train for about a year to do a marathon. I did a marathon once in 2004. And I did that with 2 weeks of training, because someone said, oh, I know you fight, but you can't run a marathon. There was this girl that I know. And I said, what was your time? She said 4 hours and 20 minutes. And I said, it's in 2 weeks. I said, watch, I'll do it under 4 hours. And I didn't. I did it in 4 hours and 56 seconds. But that was 2004. And for fighting, I've been running, because it's part of training to keep your weight down and for the stamina. But I would do 3 to 6 miles. And sometimes I can be a little bit naive, you know, and I'm like, well, how difficult can it be? You put one foot in front of the other and then you go, right? But when it comes to ultra marathons, there's actually a lot of technique to running. And I didn't have that. And I also walk. I played a lot of soccer, so I walk like I'm bow-legged.
Yeah, like
and that is not good for long distance running. I thought if you were born that way, that's how you're gonna walk. Yeah. The ultra running has actually helped me improve my posture when it comes to walking, understand how the body mechanics of it. And I did one session with something called PRI, pelvic restoration, something, realizing like how you gotta use your core when you run and your posture. And that way it takes most of the of the pounding on your knees and your hips off. But I had a serious problem leading up to this. The furthest I went before the run was 30 miles. And I ran 16 miles before my hips started hurting. Mile 22, my knee started hurting. By mile 24, my knee and my hip were hurting so much that my hip locked up and I couldn't run. So the furthest I actually ran before this was 24 miles. Then I walked 6 miles. I said, I'm doing 30 miles today. I will not stop. I don't care if I'm going to have to crawl. And talking about mental fortitude, that day was just as important, if not more important, than the days when I had great runs, right? Because it was part of that mindset that I don't care. On September 7th, I'm doing 50 miles. A problem was leading up to it. So I trained, I got this online training schedule that I Googled how to prepare for an ultra marathon. One of the guys that was 8 of us that started, he has been training for over 10 years for this because he was originally going to do it. And on the way to the airport, he found out his father died and he stopped. But all these guys that were part of this, they were trained athletes, a lot better in my opinion than me. One of them is one of the Ninja Warriors. He's on the OCR team, obstacle course racing for the US national team. And me, an MMA fighter that's trained for a few months. But during these long distance runs, I fell in love with running. I found a new love. I love martial arts, but it's almost like a type of meditation. And it gets you focused and it helps me in work and in life. And so I loved the running. And then when we were going to do it, the park rangers that work the Grand Canyon, we were in close contact with them. And they said, guys, we highly recommend you not to do this. We can't stop you, but we have almost record heats. We think it might be as high as 104 degrees, which is, I think, 39 degrees Celsius. It was actually 108, which is 40 degrees Celsius. When you run up the North Rim, the sun is hitting, there's no shade, and it hits the rock. Now it heats up the rock. So we didn't know, but it was recorded that day 125 degrees. At one point when we met some of the rangers that were helping giving a young man who's in really good shape oxygen, they told us that there might have been spots where it can be as high as 150 degrees. I'd never been in heat where I felt claustrophobic, where I felt like this is, I just want out of this. I don't want to be here. And I can tell you those moments, because I was getting nauseous from the heat, exhaustion. I forgot my Garmin watch that I was supposed to have when I was running to see my heart rate. I was in lactic acid threshold for over 2 hours straight. And I get to the North Rim where my brother came in, that's halfway, right, before we got back. And my brother is on the ground and he's not in good shape. And he's the most experienced. He stands up and he starts projectile vomiting. And I'm like, this isn't good. I filmed it, of course, so I have it on camera. But we had to cool down our systems and then run back. And you can't compare it to fighting because fighting is different. But in many ways, it was the most difficult thing I've done in my life. And it was mentally the most challenging thing. And it was also difficult for me because I knew I got scared of myself at some points where I started seeing black spots and I was stumbling a little bit when I was walking.
And it's very hard to run in Grand Canyon too, right?
There's parts that you can't run. One is too steep and it's too rocky where you have to walk. And it's very narrow and hundreds and hundreds. It's not for the faint-hearted. Like, it's funny because after a while you run and you're just looking down and you're just used to it. But it's really, really high. That's why one of the most common ways people die is they fall down. And it was 2 helicopter rescues that day. Out of the 8 that started, 4 of us finished rim to rim to rim. The other 4 went rim to rim, which I can tell you in itself, that was the hardest part, the first 26.
And how did they get back? Did someone...
There's a shuttle, and it takes 4.5 hours to go from the north side in a car back. So they took a shuttle. And I know some of those guys will go back and they will finish it as well. I would highly recommend anyone that does it not to do it in September. I had a secret dream to one day maybe do Badwater, which is 135 miles through Death Valley. And I'm going to do 100 one day. And I don't mind the elevation. It was 22,000 feet elevation. But that I don't mind. That type of heat, I didn't enjoy, to be honest. But I got scared because I knew I wasn't going to stop. There was no way. If I was gonna have to crawl, I would crawl, but I was gonna do those 50 miles. But I got scared that I was gonna have a heat stroke, or that I was gonna need medical care and they weren't gonna allow me to continue. That was a concern. But I also understand, heat exhaustion and heat stroke is not a joke. Like I said, 12 people die on average there a year. And that's just in the Grand Canyon. That doesn't include the rest of the world. It's just at the LA Marathon, people have died from heat strokes. So it is, but it's a calculated risk. And, I drank, I had a 2.5 liter bag. I filled it and emptied it 7 times. That's 15 liters. That's almost 4 gallons of water. I peed twice in 17 hours and 5 minutes.
Where do you get water when you're down there?
So they have water stations,
Oh, they do? Okay.
but there was pipelines that were broken. So there was 2 portions where we ran for 11 miles and we had to know that we had enough water for those 11 miles because there was no way for us to get water anywhere else. It was very, very tough. It was mentally very challenging, but it was also one of the most rewarding things still. Like we talk about it, the group that did this together, we have a group chat and we talk to each other there, and it's something spiritual. I don't belong to a religion, but I'm spiritual, and I can say if you haven't been to the Grand Canyon, go to the Grand Canyon. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's breathtaking. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world for a reason, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this as well, because the symbolism of what we're doing. So it was a way for me to raise awareness and raise funds. We raised $8,200, I think, or $8,400. That's going to go to continuing education and this fight to have the BAC level lowered, right? Yeah. But we also used the hashtag 50 50 miles 405, to again raise awareness to why we need this. And that was part of it, obviously. And we had some great sponsors for this run. Simple Human, a huge company. Lululemon sponsored it. VitaFlow, which do CBD products that help me get through it. And then Aesthetics, which is the doctor. And I just love knowing that there's people out there, companies out there that care. That said, let's back you on this. Let's be behind you and donate for this cause. And this is how it starts, right? But for me as well, personally, both to show other people, but for myself too, to go, I know I have opposition. I know they're giants. I know they have millions of dollars. I just conquered the Grand Canyon. How on earth how are they going to measure? They can't stop. If I can run the Grand Canyon, how is some piece of shit, to be honest, because that's what they are, the American Beverage Institute and Rick Berman, how is he going to stop me? There's no way.
What do you think Liam would say? Daddy, you're crazy, or would he be proud? You don't have to do all this.
He'll be, he'll be 4 now and 4.5, and I think he'll be very proud, because he knows that it's for him that I do it, and even though the fight is in order to save other lives, but. That's kind of part of it as well. Like I feel like I need to do it. It's a way for me to show my love for my son. So he'll be proud, and even before this run and other things that I do, to some people it was crazy, and I look at other people. The wingsuit people that do the wingsuit or big wave surfers, and I'm like, that's crazy. So crazy is subjective.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing, and like in my mind, this is a true martial artist. You are. It's many people call themselves martial artists, but to truly do something with, like, you're ready to die in that moment, and that is so fucking crazy. That is beautiful, and still carry yourself like a true martial artist. So thank you for doing that. And can you just share in those moments on that run when you were like totally exhausted, and did you ever think like, I'm going to give up?
No,
How do you keep going? Because I think most people would at least consider the thought like, I don't need to do. I ran half. I don't need to continue. Like,
my biggest concern with that run was that my hip or my knee was gonna give out, and I was gonna have to crawl, and or walk, whatever it was gonna take. But that's what I mean. It's so important that you say this is where we're going. It's like a boat, you're on a ship and you say, this is the destination. There's going to be some high waves. There's going to be some storms. We're going to have some people get seasick on the way, but this is where we're going. And once you have that, then it's hard. And you get these thoughts, just like my fighter did yesterday, right? Which again, I love that he was so honest because he's so young, and to have I hope I'm able to, and I think that's what part of what we do with the fight team, that we don't try to be macho. We don't try to be tough. We do that when we're inside of the ring or the cage. That's tough enough. Yeah. But we're human beings. And to be able to speak about our emotions and say, this is tough, this is difficult. And of course, there were moments, I get those voices too. Yeah. Okay, call it, enough. Like you said, we've done a marathon, we've done this, we've done that. But that's not what I said I was going to do. And I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. And again, had this been 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have finished it. But part of David Goggins, who wrote a great book called Can't Hurt Me, he talks about his cookie jar, about when you go through hard times, you go back into the cookie jar and you pick up a cookie from moments when you have succeeded and gone through adversity, right? And so while I remember going up there, as I'm going up there, I was in the special forces, I was in the military, and when we did our Green Beret test, the Green Beret is part of what the Rangers have in Sweden. We did 120K. That's more than the 80K I was doing that day. And we had weight, we had weapon and backpack that was a lot heavier. And I'm telling myself that. And then the other side of my head, I have another voice saying, yeah, but not in 125 degrees of heat. Yeah. And then I keep going and I'm like, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 24 hours. I can do this. And then the voice in the head saying, but not in 125 degrees. Yeah. And then you learn with time to at first it's right here, right? It's in your face, like, just stop, don't do this anymore. And then you keep pushing it back, you keep pushing it back, you keep pushing it back. You're fighting, you forget, and it's a lot of times the same with the fight. A lot of times people ask, how can you guys hug each other afterwards? Because the fight wasn't necessarily with that person. The fight was within. The fight was with myself. Everything leading up to that moment. And I know that he went through the same thing. So that's what, when you conquer something, that's great. But in the end of the day, what you do is you conquer yourself, or the fear or the doubt that you had, and you prove to yourself. And if you do it for someone else, then you can be inspiring to someone else. But you have to do it for yourself. Yeah. And has people done the rim to rim to rim? There's been people that have done it. It's not a lot of people on this planet that have, but there's been people that have done it. There's people that have done it a lot faster than we did it. Yeah. But I don't care about that. They are amazing to me. Yeah. But I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. I did it for Liam. I did it to raise awareness so that we can get change.
But what do you want to say to the people that don't have that track record? They don't have things to bring out in the cookie jar yet. Like, what can they do to get the courage to do that? To don't quit, because those are the people that we want to help. To take that step and create that life that is hard.
It's almost like a catch-22, but you do it, you create it. And now, what I mean by that is you don't start with the Grand Canyon. And I could tell you, martial arts, like, again, I was in many ways I was the weak chain out of that group. The one thing I had going for me, I live in California, so maybe I had a little bit more heat than them, but I wasn't prepared for that. It was the martial arts training. That I have failed so many times, and I've come back so many times, that I've known that my mind isn't, and friends of mine, I have a friend who's an ultra marathon runner as well, and he said, mind-wise, you're good. That's actually could be a blessing or a curse for you, because you won't stop. But he said, I just don't know if your body's ready for it, because I didn't have enough proper time to train for this, But you can create it. Anyone can create it. The thing is, you don't start with 50 miles. Maybe you start with 1 mile. Maybe you start with just running for a minute straight if you're really out of shape. And I don't care if you're 15. Now, obviously, the younger you are, the earlier you can start, the more training you can get, and the stronger mentally you will get. But you can start anytime in your life. You hear about this, like look at David Goggins, for example. He was like obese almost up until his 20s. There's a famous case of a woman, she's going to start doing she trained for a 10K, who she was going to do with her husband. She was in her 50s, she's been smoking for 25 years. And she started doing ultra marathons. She's got records. I think she did the most ultra marathons in a row in a short period of time in her 80s. Yeah. So whatever it is, it's a famous YouTube video of a Navy SEAL, an older man who said, start by making in your bed in the morning, because that's your first win of the day. Whether it's making your bed, if it's doing 10 push-ups, if it's running 1 mile, whatever it is, set out. Now make that a habit. Once you conquer that, and I can tell you this, the further you are away from it, the less you have done in your life, the smaller your goal has to be. Because the biggest problem that people do is, on the 31st of December every year, they say, this is going to be the year. New year, new me. I'm going to get into shape. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to work out 6 days a week. And I'm going to do... Well, you haven't even worked out 1 day. Yeah. And you want to start like a professional athlete 6 days a week? Are you crazy? Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. And each time you set yourself up for failure, you slip a little further away. Not because you're not good enough, but just because you set unrealistic goals. So if you set a goal that's just above, and now you can get to that level, and then you go to the next one, and then you start building. That's how you do it. But if you set the goal up here, and even if you do okay, you're still going to feel like even if you worked out 3 days a week, which is what doctors recommend, right? I think you should do 6 days a week. But if you do 3 days a week, which is good, that's more than most of the people on this planet. 3 days a week, that's a success. But according to your goals, you failed. So now you still look, and that's the biggest problem, is that people look at themselves as failures. Yeah. You're not a failure. You just weren't there yet. So start with a small goal. And this is what I work a lot with, right, with the personal coaching. Yeah. And I have a client right now that has a long way to go. And she knows it, and I know it, we speak it. But we're going to get her there because I know she has the drive, right? But she set out these goals, and she's like, but I haven't done this, and it's not perfect. And I'm like, forget about perfect. Yeah. That's the biggest problem, that people start going, it got to be like this, and I got to have the right workout clothes, and I got to have the right shoes, and I got to have this, and I got to forget about everything. Just do. Yeah. Nike had it down the best. I think I said that last time I was here. Just do it. Yeah. Because once you start doing, then you can refine. Now you can set a little more height. Start by doing a mile. Do a 5K. Do a 10K. Do half a marathon. Yeah. And a famous K1 fighter who I admire a lot and has become a good friend via social media. He's a good friend of a friend of mine as well. But his name is Gary Turner. He's known as the Smiler because he was smiling when he was inside of the ring. And he wrote to me and said, Marcus, you got this because the most difficult distance is half a marathon. He said everything past that is just mental. Yeah. And there's some truth to that. You got to build your body up so that you can do half a marathon. Again, I started struggling, like say a marathon at least, right? But once you can run, once your body is capable of doing the distance, right? And you can get energy. We burned some 10,600 calories that day. So you got to replenish, right? But as long as the body can do it, well, it makes sense. After that, it's all your mind. You say when you're going to stop. You decide when you stop. How far do you want to take it?
I love that. And I just want to tell everybody that once again, November 3rd, I'm running a half marathon.
I'll join you.
Marcus is going to join me, and we're going to create a fundraiser for this as well. So you guys can donate. I think I'm going to have a Facebook so that you can donate, and we're going to do something on liamslife.org.
Yes.
Everybody can go in there and donate right now already, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I also want to encourage people to run wherever you are in the world. Do a race for Liam and collect some money, and let us know what do you want to say about this. What more can they do to support us in this?
The book that I wrote, Life is a Moment, 20% of proceeds from there goes to the non-profit. The short-term answer is don't drink and drive, obviously. Don't let a friend drink and drive. Sign up to be an organ donor. Go to Amazon Smile. Is something, there's a great way. Amazon has a great program. If you go to smile.amazon.com, if you have an Amazon account already, just sign in the way you normally would. And then you can sign up for Liam's Life Foundation. Then every time you buy something from Amazon, not you don't have to pay anything, but Amazon donates 0.5% of your sales to the non-profit. We have some 50, 60 people that have already signed up. We don't take any payment from the non-profit. It all goes to the fight. But that's what you need as a non-profit is money. But here's a chance to be part of this without having to do anything. And every time you purchase something, you are part of both making history and saving lives, because that's what we are doing. Because one day, like you said, people are going to look back and go, this is the fight that lowered the blood alcohol content. Yeah. This is what saved lives. And that's obviously not the end of it. But this Liam's fight, drunk driving, was what we started with. That was the catalyst for our fight. But it's going to continue, because now I can't unsee what I've seen when it comes to American politics. I can't stop now. I've seen too much. And again, as a true martial artist, also just as a good citizen, when you see something that's wrong, you can't accept it, right? Whether it be the environment or whatever the fight is, find something to fight for. It's important to work hard, to try to be as successful as you can, but it's more important to enjoy the life that we have and to leave some type of a legacy, right? And that's to be part of making a change, making a difference, do something that you can look back at and to be proud of, right? If you work a 9 to 5 that you don't necessarily love, find something that you have a fire for. Right? Because we have to make a living, we have to live. And if you feel like your job doesn't satisfy you, find something that does satisfy you. Yeah. That's going to be the fight that's going to make you happier, that's going to make you feel like you live life.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's been a lot of research about what truly makes you happy. And they came to the conclusion of two things. First of all, service to others. When you give back, it makes you happy. And also learning. So those two things, people that serve others and keep learning are usually very happy people. So if you're not doing that right now in your life, I truly encourage you to start doing that in whatever sense it is. Give back, support Liam's life or something else that's important to you. And learn through these conversations that we have here. Read books, meet people, instead of close yourself into this world where nothing is good or you're not good enough. You are good enough. We love you. We want to support you on this journey. And as always, Marcus, I've had an incredible time with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there anything else that you want to share before I let you guys go?
No, there's going to be more of these. Like, I can't stop now. Even forget about the fight. Of course, we're not going to stop that. But even myself, and we're already planning the next thing. And we've come to the conclusion, I need to keep pushing myself. Like, I'm finding ways, and I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but on the 5th of October, I'm doing a super fight in grappling. Not MMA, I'm done with MMA. My parents got scared, they thought I was fighting again. But it's not a fight, it's grappling only. But my opponent, we fought once in the finals of the All Americas. He beat me by 2 or 4 points, but it was a really good match. And I didn't know how good it was, actually. He's really good. And he hit me up and he said, with all respect, he said, I would love to do this fight with you. And I want to donate my proceeds to Liam's Life Foundation. And I want to help. That's the only thing that this is about. It's just about raising awareness for the nonprofit. And how can I say no to that, first and foremost? And, it's like those moments. Like with you, when you told me that you're going to do this run and call it, Team Remember Liam, those are the things, like, because there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of closed doors. There's a lot of no's. There's a lot of, it's not going to be possible. Yeah. It's going to be possible. We're going to find a way. But when you guys, you shine some light, you add to that hope. And to know that there's people out there, there's so many as well. There's so many people that have helped out, that have donated, that support the fight. And that's it, you know, that's all we can ask for. And if you live in a state, I'm going to Illinois in November, I think, not the 3rd, to speak up there, and hopefully Illinois is going to be the next state that we get it introduced in. And if you live in a state, it doesn't matter if you live in California as well, we need your help here too. But if you're in a state where you don't have point zero 0.08 and you want to be part of the fight, you can join Liam's Life there as well. And yeah, just follow Liam's Life on social media. Every time we have something that we need to take action, people can be part of it there. And that's what makes it so amazing, that yes, this is mine and Michelle's, it was our son who started this movement, but this fight is for everyone that has been affected or lost someone due to drunk driving. And considering that 66% of the US population will at some point be affected by drunk driving, if you haven't, I'm very happy for you. Join this fight before you're affected as well.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you everybody that you watched and listened to this episode. Support the journey. We'll have all the links here so you can be part of this. Also, if you want more amazing conversation with incredible human beings, check us out at ilovesuccess.co. Also, I'll give you a couple of free chapters of my book. There's so many resources that we share for free with you. The only thing I ask from you is to take action and also help us on this journey by sharing this conversation with someone that needs to hear it, that needs to change their life or be a part of something bigger than just complaining every day or not be satisfied with the life you live, because we only have one. So truly make the best out of it. Thank you so much and talk soon.